Hello everybody, so we're going to do something a little bit different in this video. Uh, Not really content covered in the book per se, but just to kind of show you a little bit of some other things. What we're going to do is I'm actually going to show you how these images were created as far as for the life right up there, and also how the checkpoint was created so that so you can see how those two were both created. Now, in order to make those, we used Photoshop for both of them and just made some changes as needed. So, if I can sneak past her and not get her to talk to me. There we go. So, how this checkpoint was made back there as well. Okay, so that's what we're going to take a look at. Both of those. So to begin with, what I'm going to do is get myself some things to start this process off with. So I'm going to go to my characters folder, go to Sancho, grab my knight, and let's take a look at my animations here. Pull that up some. And I'm going to start off by getting myself an animation to work with here. Let's see. Zoom in a little bit. Okay, maybe something like that. Let's go find like his wave animation, I think. It's one of his idols. Let's see, is it that one? Nope, he's just breathing. That one? Nope, that's him scratching. This one? There he goes. Okay, and got him waving. That'll do. There we are. Let's zoom in a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, I'll do about like that right there. Now I'm going to pull up a tool in Windows. Mac has a similar one. Don't remember the name right off the top of my head. But on Windows it's called Snipping Tool. You can go to your start bar and you could just type snipping, for instance. And there it is. I've got mine snapped onto my taskbar down there. And I will go ahead, do a new, and just kind of box select right around Sancho here. And that's going to become my starting point. I'm going to select everything that I've got here. So Control A, Control C, Control A selects all, Control C copies, and then I'm going to go into Photoshop. And in Photoshop I'll create a new image, and the new image is going to be based upon my width and height of what is currently in my clipboard. So I'll do an OK and a Control V. So there we are. So I've got Sancho right there, and I'm ready to start going from there. Now, one thing about this video is not intended to introduce everything that is in Photoshop. This is just intended to introduce how I used Photoshop to do a couple of things and kind of reinforce some concepts about images, sprites, textures, transparency, and things like that. So that's a pretty important little thing to keep in mind there. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and with my image here, go to, let's see, let's go to my selection tools over here on this side. I'm going to use what's called a polygon lasso selection. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit, and I'm just going to pick a spot and create a selection by tracing around Sancho's body here. And I'm not going to really try too hard. Well, I mean, I'm going to try to get it fairly close, but if it's not quite right, I'm not all that worried about it. So I'm not going to really sweat bullets over this. Just going to kind of quickly try to get this traced out. And then once I have this selected, I can actually like invert the selection and get rid of everything that's not selected, which in this case would be the background. And that's good because I don't want any of that stuff. I actually want to get rid of that. So let's see here. Okay, coming around that hand. Oh, let's not go too far. He does need to keep his leg. Might want that for something. There. Well, that's a skinny leg. Come down here. Now Photoshop does have some other tools, for instance color selection, so I could have like selected that gray background and then just deleted all of that. But the issue there is that I've also got these white lines that are inside here. So in order to kind of bypass some of those problems, I figured I'll just go ahead and do this quick lasso selection, which it's going to take 3-4 minutes, but not really too terribly long. And so Photoshop you can get from Adobe. It's part of their Creative Cloud system that actually comes with more than just Photoshop. You can get Illustrator, Audition, which is a very powerful sound editor, Premiere Pro, which is great for video editing. There's also, what else is there? Fuse, which is a really cool tool to use as an indie developer for creating your own characters without actually having to model them. That one's in conjunction with Mixamo, which are really nice. Let's see, what else do they have? After Effects, Flash, just a bunch of really nice tools to be able to add to your collection of tools. Okay, coming around up this way. And once we get these cut out, once we're into Unity, we're gonna import them in two different ways. One is going to be as a sprite because it's part of our user interface, and the other one is going to be as a texture because it is going to be used as a material or a part of a material. So we kind of have to pay attention to how it is we're defining these. I'm not going to worry about this space between his fingers. Just going to kind of come down here, get this all wrapped up really quick. And then to close off this polygon lasso tool, I'm just left clicking each place I want to place a new thing, by the way. I just go back to where I started. You see my icon changes a little bit to that open circle, meaning that I'm clicking on a vertex, I can close it. So there I've got that selection right there. Now I'm going to reverse my selection so that I've got everything else selected. So I'll go select and inverse, and with everything else selected I'll just hit delete, and there it is, it's all gone. And for right now I can leave this as white, which is my background color right here, my background layer. But if I hide my background layer, you can see that the only thing on this main layer is going to be Sancho himself. And so Photoshop, very powerful in allowing us to have things on separate layers like this. So let's see, let's go ahead and resize everything a little bit. So I'm going to come down here to my crop tool, zoom out some. I'm going to deselect what I've currently got selected just by pressing Control D. And let me see here. Whoop, right about there, maybe. Right about there. Oh, press the wrong button there. 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 And let me pull that down just a little bit. There we go. And then I'll just hit my checkbox. So I've got that cropped to that size. That's pretty good. Okay, let's go ahead, and now I need to create a transparency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything that is here. So hold down Control and click on that thumbnail for that layer, and I've got Sancho himself selected. Go into my channels, and in my channels I'm going to create what's called an alpha channel. So by default I have a red, green, and blue channel, and these channels display the color appropriate for that individual channel, right? So like there's my red channel, for instance, and there's my green, red and green, and there's my RGB, all of them. So an alpha channel is going to be a third channel that is going to store transparency information. And the way that works is it is going to be a black and white channel. It only has black and white data. And the white is going to be what's visible, the black is what's invisible, and shades of gray, or shades between that black and white, are going to be various levels of visibility. So you can make something cloudy by having it be like gray, and it's kind of transparent. You can make cloudy fogged glass or something like that. So to create my alpha channel, I'm just going to, right here, I'm going to create a new channel. It's going to be an alpha channel, and I want Sancho right here to be white. So I'll go ahead, do an edit and a fill, and I'm going to fill it with I could use my foreground color because that is white, but I'm going to go ahead and select white anyway, like so. Alright, cool. Select everything else. Notice this background became this reddish color. And basically what it's doing is it's telling me that that is actually transparent within my image. So let's see, everything's ready here. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect what I've got. Just do a Control D right there. I'll go to a file. Let's do a save as. And I'm going to save it on my desktop for right now. And I'm going to save it as a targa. And once I select the targa there, make sure alpha channel is selected. And I'm going to save this as, I'm going to call it waving. Okay. And just do a save. Next up is to make sure you have 32 bits per pixel. That is going to allow 4 channels right there, 8 bits per channel. 8 times 4 is 32. So we'll do an OK. And we had it saved. So let's go into our Unity here. And I'm going to go ahead and import that asset. Let me pull up my File Explorer real quick. Go to my desktop, and there's waving. I'm going to drag it down into here. There it is. So let's select waving. There it is. Let's make it a sprite, like so. We'll do an apply. And we got our transparency. There we go. And now I'm ready to take this thing and assign it out here to, oh, say this image object that's out here, right? And get that assigned the way that I want. Now this is really blurry because we have it so large right there. So our sprite guy is ready to be assigned out there, and we're good to go. One thing to note is our max size right here is currently set to 2048, but notice that my image is actually not that big. If I get my max size below that, like let's say 32, and apply that, and let's see. You can't see it, but it becomes more blurry. So let's see, I'm going to go with 512. There we go, which covers my size. 359 is bigger than 256, so that's why I went with the 512. Okay, so there we've got our basic life one. So let's go ahead and create the texture that goes onto the coin for our checkpoint system. Once again, back in Photoshop, I'm going to create a new image. So I'll go File, New, and I don't know what size. Let's call this, I'm going to go with 100 by 100 on my pixels here, like so. Okay, I'm going to create, let's zoom in on this, like so, and I'm going to create a couple of layers. One layer, I'm going to call this my circle background. Then I'll create another layer, and I'll call this circle ring, and then I'll create one more layer, and I will call this one Sancho head. There we go. Alright, so my circle background, I want a kind of brownish color. So let's go down into our brownish area here. Maybe something like that. And then I want to create a circle in here. So I'm going to go to my selection tool and do an elliptical marquee selection. And I'm just going to drag a little circle out here. And once I've got that circle out there, go to my select. And inside my select, I can transform my selection, which will allow me to get this circle to actually line up with my area that I've got. A whole lot easier to do it this way than sweating over whether we've got it lined up exactly right or not. Alright, so with that done, let's do an edit. Oops, let's accept our transform there, and then we will go to an edit and go to a fill, which is going to fill this circle selection with my foreground color, which is that nice little brownish color. Okay, there we go. And now I want to put a ring around it. So let's get us a goldish yellowish kind of color. Let's move up. Maybe something like that. And this time, instead of fill, I'm going to go to edit and use stroke. And it will use this line right here, and it will paint along that selection line. Let's see, 1 pixel, probably too small. Let's try 5 pixels. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, there we go. And now I've got my basic shape in place there. All right, with that basic shape in place, oops, you know what? So I got my circle background. Let me go to my circle ring and let me put my ring on that layer. Edit, stroke, fill, do that. Okay, so why use these two layers? Well, if I ever decide that I don't want it yellow, I want it some other color, I can just hide that layer, and paint something else on it. I can hide this one, and maybe I decide I want something that's got a different color background. If we come back here, notice what we've got up here. That looks very, very similar to the checkpoint, just made some changes with our layering as far as what is visible in our layer, and made slight color variations and whatever. So using multiple layers makes it very nice, very important when we're working with Photoshop, or even if you think about our user interfaces that we worked on in this chapter as well. So this is a non-destructive approach, so I can change things without destroying things. What I need next is Sancho's head. So let's zoom in here, and I will just do a quick little selection, grab his head like so. There we go. Let's do a Control C. Let's come over here on Sancho head's layer, do a Control V, and notice what happened. Well, that was weird. Why did that happen? That happened because over here in this original picture on our channels, we're on the alpha channel. So I copied the alpha channel information, which is black and white. So let's go back up to our RGB right there and do another Control C, come over here and do a Control V, and there's Sancho's head. Okay, let's work with his head a little bit. So I'm going to go to my movement, make sure my show transform controls are on, and let's kind of, Sancho, your head's kind of big. Maybe something like that. Let's see, maybe rotate you a little bit, Sancho. Okay. And then let's move you over to, okay, right about there. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my layers. I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to, well, let's go to our circle layer. Hold down Control and click that thumbnail, which just selected everything that's in there right there, and go back to Sancho. And with all of that selected, I will just do an inverse selection, just like we did a few minutes ago. Inverse this, and that's going to allow me to quickly erase this stuff that's outside there. So I'll just go like so. Alright, nice. Let's get rid of that selection. Well, yeah, let's get rid of that selection with a deselect. I'm going to drop Sancho's head down below the ring. So there we go. It comes in there nicely. And then let's do, let's see, what do we want to do here? Let's go to our circle background, Control click that. See, we need to get this out just a little bit farther here. Let's see, let's Control click our circle. Oops, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. Control click on that one, then Control click on our circle, and we've got all of those selected. Let's see what happens if we do a select inverse here, and we've got everything out there selected. Okay, so this is what I'm going to start with as I make my transparency to get rid of these corners. So let's go into our channels. Let's add an alpha channel, and on this alpha channel I'm going to go ahead and, let's see, we've already inverted our selection. Let's go ahead and do an edit. Well, it's black, so let's not invert our selection. Let's go back to what I had originally, and let's do a edit fill with white. Okay, we got that part, fine. Let's go, get off of there, let's go back here. Let's Control click on our circle itself, go back into RGB channel alpha, do another edit fill with white. Okay, so we got all that filled in the way that we want. Let's make sure RGB is back on, turn that back on, and you can see the transparent part is in those corners. Okay, we'll get rid of our selection with a Control D, or deselect. There we go. And let's save this out just like we did before. So we'll go File, Save As. And I will call this head, and let's save it as a Targa. Save. 32 bits. Looks good. Okay. Alright, saved it out. And then we'll go back into Unity here, and let's go ahead and import this. So we'll import that. There's the head. Now I want to make it transparent. 2048 is way too big. This is 128 by 128. So I'm going to drop it down to 256. That's going to be my first step. Then in my texture, where we've got this texture, yeah, I'm going to leave it as texture. That's just fine. And create a game object. And go to a, let's see, a 3D object plane. That'll work. It's a huge plane, but it'll work. Okay, let me move this. Do some resizing here. Okay, there's my plane, so you can see the plane. And then I'm going to create a material for this thing. So I'll go create material right there. New material is fine. I'm going to drop a new material onto my plane. Select new material. And currently it's an albedo, so I'll select albedo. Oh, that's going to be quicker this other way. I'll drag the head up here onto the albedo channel. That looks terrible. Yeah, it's supposed to. We'll go from standard down here to legacy shaders, down here to transparent, to cutout, to diffuse, because I don't have any bump information on it, and there it goes. And notice the transparent information was pulled straight out of what we just created here in Photoshop. We just created that alpha channel, and you can see how once we went to a cutout, it just pulled that transparent information right out of that alpha channel and just dropped it right into there and gave us a really nice transparency. Okay, yeah, we've got these squares there, but this was thrown together really quick just as a demo. Alright, so really quick introduction, not even an introduction actually, really quick demo of some uses of Photoshop, specifically for creating transparencies. It's one of those things that for people new to game development, transparencies are kind of this black magic voodoo kind of thing that only scary people do, and it's really not that hard to do. It's just a case of setting up an alpha channel. Black is transparent, white is what you want visible. You can do this in Photoshop, you can do this in GIMP. There's probably even some other programs you can use for doing this as well. Okay, so hopefully this kind of opened the door a little bit on some of the backside of game development, of asset creation specifically, which we have not looked at hardly at all in this book. Models, all that kind of stuff really wasn't the focus of our book here. Our focus was creating games with assets. Okay, so if you do have any questions, just drop them in the comments down below, and I will get back to them just as soon as I can.